Good day everyone, I am Cresley Gamay from BS Chemistry 2H1. The chapter 4 talks about the higher education and the life of Rizal abroad, his education in Manila as well as in Europe, and his early travels and second travel abroad. In this video, I am just going to tackle about Rizal's second travel abroad, specifically in Biarritz, Paris, Brussels, Ghent, Hong Kong, and lastly in Sandakan. Rizal take a more than a month vacation in Biarritz, a tourist town in southwestern France. Noted for its mild climate and beaches, he arrived there in February 1891 and welcomed as guest in the house of the Busteds, especially by Nelly, with whom he later had a serious but failed romantic relationship. Nelly Busted, also called Nelly and Rizal's almost wife, was the younger of the two pretty daughters of the wealthy businessman Eduardo Busted, a son of a rich British trader who went to the Orient in 1826. Perceiving Jose Rizal's imminent courtship to her, his compatriot Marcelo H. del Pilar teased the lover boy by suggesting that his first novel should be renamed Nelly Me Tangere. The Busted hosted Rizal's stay in Biarritz in February 1891 at their winter residence Villa Iliada on the superb French Riviera. Rizal had befriended the family back in 1889 to 1890, and he used to fence with the Anglo-Filipino Busted sisters Adelina and Nelly at the studio of Juan Luna. Having learned about Leonor Rivera's marriage to Henry Keeping, Rizal entertained the idea of having romantic relations with the highly educated, cheerful, athletic, beautiful, and morally upright Nelly. As Nelly had long been infatuated with Rizal, she reciprocated his affection and they officially became an item. Though very much ideal, Nelly and Jose's lovely relationship unfortunately did not end up in marriage. Nelly's mother, a Filipina who came from the rich Donato family in Manila, was not in favor of taking as a son-in-law a man who could not provide a sure stable future for her daughter. On top of this, Rizal refused to be converted to Protestantism, which Nelly demanded. The breakup between the very civil and educated couple was far from bitter, as the two parted as friends. In Biarritz, he continued to work on his El Fili and completed its manuscript on March 29, the eve of his departure for Paris, in which Valentin Ventura hosted his short stay. In April 1891, Rizal returned to Brussels, Belgium. He remained in the household which he stayed when he first went to Brussels in 1890. This was the house owned by the Jacobs. The foremost reason that impelled him to go back to Belgium was to concentrate in finishing his second novel, El Filibusterismo. It was a high time for him to complete the story of El Fili. It had been a little less than 4 years since he started writing it. In Brussels, Rizal revised and prepared for printing his second novel until the end of May, and by June 1891, he was already looking for a printing firm to print the El Filibusterismo. And as expected, our hero was faced again with lack of funds to finance the publication. He needed to look for some other place where the cost of printing was less. With full determination to print his novel, Rizal moved to Ghent from Brussels in July 1891 for a cheaper printer. In Ghent, he met Jose Alejandrino, a Filipino engineering student at the University of Ghent. Alejandrino agreed to share a room with Rizal. Both lived a simple life, avoiding so many expenses. Rizal experienced so many difficulties in Ghent. He had to content himself with a small room with Alejandrino. They decided not to include breakfast in the lodging, so they would pay less for the rent. For the breakfast, Rizal bought a box of biscuits and made sure to count every piece and apportion it so it would last the whole month. He took his meals in less costly restaurant. Rizal was lucky, however, that it did not take him long for a printer willing to print his book. The publisher G. Mayer Van Loo Press, number 66, Vianderin Street, agreed to print El Fili on an installment basis. Printing went immediately. However, when the first part of the novel was printed, Rizal had no more money to finance the second part, and the printing had to be suspended on August 6. This difficulty was another source of sadness to our hero. When everything seemed to have fallen apart, good news came from his friend Valentin Ventura. His friend agreed to loan money for the completion of the printing. With this timely amount, the printing of the second part pushed through and finally, the El Fili came off the press on September 18, 1891. A month after his second novel was published in Ghent, Rizal decided to go to Hong Kong. However, prior to his departure, there was confusion in his mind as to whether he would go home to be with his family or to proceed to the British colony. In October 1891, he finally made up his mind. He left Europe via SS Melbourne, on which he began writing his third but unfinished novel. After a month-long trip, he arrived in Hong Kong on November 20. Rizal busied himself with the practice of his profession as ophthalmic surgeon. He rented a house at number 5 D. Aguilar Street, number 2 Rednacela Terrace. Jose also opened a medical clinic. A Portuguese friend, Dr. Lorenzo P. Marquez, helped him to get many patrons of various nationalities. His successful operation on his mother's left eye allowed her to read again. After Rizal's separation from his family for a long time, Hong Kong gave an opportunity for the reunion of the Rizal's family. On December 6, 1891, his father Pasiano and brother-in-law Silvestre Ubaldo arrived in Hong Kong to be with the hero. Jose Rizal was overwhelmed by their sudden arrival. In his letter to his sister Maria, Rizal expressed his profound joy on seeing some of his family and talked about his father's improvement, and at the same time revealed how he missed his mother Doña Teodora. Finally, his mother together with sisters Lucia, Josefa, and Trinidad arrived also in Hong Kong. The reunion of the Rizal's family was in time for Christmas. For sure, this would be a happy celebration of Yuletide season for Jose Rizal after several years of being alone in foreign land. In March 1892, Rizal went to Sandakan, East Malaysia aboard Menon to negotiate with British authorities concerning the founding of a Filipino colony in North Borneo, now called Sabah. In March 21, Rizal asked Governor General Eulogio Despojo through a letter to allow the landless Filipinos, especially the deported Calamba tenants, to establish themselves in North Borneo. And in April 1892, Rizal went back in Hong Kong. And that's about it for my report. Thank you for listening.